Evening, folks. Welcome to another session from the Old Wise Asylum. What a week. So, court case. We'll look at that later. Gangsters in suits. They don't have guns, but they have a shitload of sophistry. But we'll have a look at that later. The game is not finished yet. Anyway, that comes after. This week, as probably you're all aware, that everybody's going a bit bullshit about this KFC advert. Have you seen it? Now, I've watched a few of these adverts over the last few weeks. Some very odd ones, very strange dance with a big chicken. Kellogg's will come out with another big chicken, so there's something going on. It looks to me like Tavistocky kind of stuff, something going on here, a bit like the old Volkswagen advert of a few years ago, well, many years ago actually. It was so loaded with occult, it was unbelievable. But this KFC one, specifically, ends up dipping a human in some water and it comes out like a chicken leg or breast. Everybody's having a bit of a fit about it, but I've gone past KFC, it doesn't seem to have affected anybody, they're still going. So I don't know, but there's some very strange stuff going on with the KFC. Of course, EG Group have sold the shares in it, in the franchises that they had. They had quite a lot of franchises to get the halal chicken on. So we'll have a little look at who owns it, who runs it, and what the hell are they up to. But first, as they get ready to launch Tommy the Tit to create that 5% of civil unrest undercurrent from the hooligan quarter of our fair nation, they're after your money. They're after your more money and they're telling big fibs. And we'll have a look at that. And I'll show you why they're telling big fibs and why you shouldn't be sending any money. But more importantly, get it in your heads that this guy is a weapon in order to undermine this nation and get UN troops on the ground. It's so important you get this, because this is the next game on the shit show that they're going to push, and you're going to have Elon Musk, you're going to have Trump, and all the faggots over there in the US pushing this no-hide system, jumping all over him, telling him what an hero he is, what a great man he is, what a super English warrior he is, without telling him, of course, he's run off and has been living in Tenerife. Yeah, as a super warrior. I don't remember watching any Hoity-Toity Nights back in the day and reading history where they fight the good fight from Tenerife. Okay, now and again they might shoot off to France, but they're back again. But I'm sorry, it just doesn't wash for me at all. But we'll have a look at this latest blag and how they actually play, because you didn't know you were thick. Because the hooligan, I mean, come on. You can't put the entire trust of the survival of this nation in the hands of the fucking hooligan, can you? The pisshead, hooligan, fruit bat, drug addicted numpties, you know what I'm saying? You can't do it. Waving the British imperial flag empire, moaning about another branch of the empire taking over the country. Yeah, you're waving the flag that this lot you don't like are operating under. Duh! You know, I mean, come on, it's just so boring that people are just too stupid to get this stuff, you know, get a grip. Because it's going to bite, this one. This is going to be a real bad one if people don't wake up and wise up to it, you know, especially you hooligans out there. Use your brain for once. Otherwise, you're going to be taken out of the mix when this nation does actually need you. Think about war here, not just your own personal hatreds and nonsense. And you've got to think, use your brain, and let them that know a bit more help you to see that actually you're being pulled into a hell of a trap here. And it's not funny. So that's what we're going to have a look at tonight. I've been working all week, so I've not really had time to do much. And of course, it took me a couple of days to get over Monday after the diatribe in that Preston court by District Judge Burrow. And Slick, Alex Worthington, a proper twat, if I've ever met one. Oh, but we'll get into that because it's very interesting. And let's just say at the end the judge shit himself when we mentioned High Court appeal. He'd run out. Gone like a little shot, he was. Didn't want to say anymore, hear anymore. Because he knows he's full of shit. But we'll have a little look and I'll just show you what they're playing at and what is no longer applicable in their eyes anymore. And what they're only applying in relation to extorting your estate, no matter what you put forward before them. Because you got to look at it another way. A judge is responsible for what he says and what he does. A prosecutor is responsible for what he says and what he does. Just as you are stood there, you're responsible for what you say and what you do. The people that bring the case are responsible for what they say and what they do. Although they try and thrust it onto the third party representing, as the third party kept reminding us, stop sending stuff to these people. Where is representative? I said to them, let's say, well, listen, we haven't employed your services, so we're not interested in your wishes, your ideas, or your suggestions. And you know, it's so pathetic that why would you believe you have to listen to the opposing forces' demands, wishes, suggestions, when they're not in your employ? But most people would do that. If you had a solicitor, that's exactly what he'd do. Yeah, interesting stuff, but what an absolute joke these people are. And worse because they actually believe that they're like something special and they're some kind of divine spiritual creature above you, which is why they can do this. When really, if you look at basically what they're doing, they're full of shit, they're lying bastards, and they're absolute assholes. All of them, clerk included. So we'll look at that after, because there's quite a bit we can look at, just to give you ideas of what it is you're up against if you go into these courts. Now, it brings so many things in, does this case, because conditional acceptances, endorsement of bills, the validity of liability orders, the fact that the magistrates' courts are not issuing these liability orders. Therefore, who do you approach to have something set aside? You can't approach the one bringing the claim to set aside his claim. It's going to diminish his claim. These were points brought out in this case. The judge acknowledged it at the beginning. He looked quite excited. It looked like he were giving us a fair go. But then when you get into the nitty-gritty of what they felt was important, in summary, he's very picky to what he chose in relation to what we put forward, and total focus on what his best little matey brought forward, because of course they're all in the same club. Honestly, 4 hours, 4 hour gig they were in there. But that's for later. We'll get on to that after, because we can go through a lot of the stuff that we used, and you can see that we can give you an idea of how they're sort of circumventing it, if you will, because they've got new case law now. New case law on lots and lots of little things. And interestingly, we can't access that case law. It would have cost me 15 grand, I think, to get into this these books that these lawyers are using specifically on case law. You could apply for a free trial, but that free trial didn't come until about 3 hours before the thing, which was just pointless to me. And it weren't a free trial, that it well, let's talk and we'll see if we can give you this. So you put on your back foot from the start in relation to the case law gig, which is judgeable according to Blackstone. It's garbage. Why would you want to be judged on ancient history instead of the merits of the case before them? It's very interesting, let's just say, but the game is not over because the High Court is looming. Which, of course, if you're going to do these adventures, you have to move it up the game. You know, I can say this hand on my heart, at Burnley magistrates or indeed Blackburn magistrates, you're dealing there with local mafia. So that's your estate agents, your solicitors, your police, your judges, everybody all interconnected in that little town. Your businesses, your council, they're all little mafia there. And you go in them courts and they treat it like it's some kind of your shit and everything they say goes. You get out of that, you get to the Preston, it was a lot more formal, it was as you'd expect it. I was able to sit next to my colleague there as a Mackenzie friend. When I did actually speak towards the end, the judge caught himself after about 3 minutes. I can't talk to you. And but you know, it was interesting, but it was a lot more formal as you'd expect, basically. But still, the same kind of skullduggery is going on. It's interesting, let's say. But any road, of course, there's your picture for the old superhero. Free Tommy or Free Stephen. You can understand why they use Tommy, can't you? Because, of course, anybody that's obsessed with the First World War, Tommy. There you go. Free Tommy! And mind image that goes into he's called Stephen fucking Laxley. All right? Why would you change the name to Tommy Robinson? Robin. Again, everybody loves Robin and Son. Yeah, it's so created that just the name in and of itself, which should be a red flag to everybody. But it isn't. It never is, because folk, they just don't see past it, do they? So what we'll do is we'll have a little look at this news report coming out of Rebel News. Now, Rebel News, of course, is an Israeli bunch. I mean, to be fair, they do get stuck into some interesting topics sometimes, and sometimes they do push out stuff that you wouldn't expect from a fully Zionized bunch of reporters. But, you know, these are the guys that have been behind Tommy for a long, long time. These guys tried to get me on side years ago. I just weren't having it because, of course, when I looked into them, I pretty saw exactly who they were. And let it be known I wasn't interested. And so these guys will get behind anybody that's on the side of the small hats or the bankers, which is what they are, that's going to help undermine your own nation. So they say, and they're presenting this in the High Court of Justice, King's Bench Division Administrative Court, but it doesn't really tell you much. It's just making it look like it's fantastic. And Tommy's gagged. No, Tommy hasn't been gagged. Tommy was told not to go to mosque. So that's a court order. He went, that he got done. He's always getting done for breaching a court order, as opposed to, as it's presented, he's not allowed to speak about certain things. He is allowed to speak about these things, but it's don't do it at this particular gig. And that's where the sort of skullduggery comes on in and around this fella. So he's not being silenced at all. He never has been silenced. And that's the way it is. In the same way that I'm not silenced. I'm very well censored in the relation to... I've been watching all week. They've knocked tons of views off last week's, and also they've knocked off a shitload of subscribers. 2 more today. So that's how they play in that sense, but I don't give a shit anyway. It's there if anybody wants to see it. But the way they're presenting it with this Tommy is that he can't talk and speak his truth. Well, he can, and he always has done. It's just he tends to go to places where he's going to cause a breach of the peace, which the state and the system is all about protecting the peace. That goes right back to King Alfred, doesn't it? You know, so it's an old ancient English tradition. Do as you please within certain boundaries that would not cause a major breach of the peace. Because things get damaged, people get hurt, and civilization doesn't like that kind of stuff. Bad news. Court sides with Tommy Robinson's tormentors. Tommy's legal team came well armed with facts, including a detailed psychological assessment of Tommy, showing that 150 days in solitary confinement are having serious mental health effects on him, only for the judge to rule he must remain in isolated. So I think it means in isolation. They can't spell. Judge rules for solitary confinement. So there's the big play. Judge rules for solitary confinement. On Thursday, I was in London at Tommy Robinson's court hearing. There, Tommy's lawyers were asking the judge to alter his draconian prison conditions. Tommy's team came well armed with facts, including a detailed psychological assessment of Tommy, showing that 150 days in solitary confinement or having serious mental health effects on him. The judge was expected to make a ruling immediately after the hearing, but said he was going to take an extra evening to consider the case, which I took as a positive sign. Unfortunately, I was wrong. The judge ruled against Tommy and sent him back to solitary. It's heartbreaking. Tommy's lawyers obviously wanted a better result, but there are still battles to fight, including appealing the original sentence, challenging his categorisation as a prisoner, which determines what prison he must be kept in, and fighting against the bogus Terrorism Act charge Tommy faces for refusing to give police his cell phone password without a warrant. I am frustrated for Tommy, but mainly I'm sad about the state of civil liberties in the UK. I love Great Britain, and one of the reasons is because of its history of the rule of law. So straight away there, you've got people that are thick, because they've cited Great Britain and the UK as one and the same. Well, clearly, that's not the case. The UK is a corporation. Great Britain is a term that's given to an occupied territory. Okay, so again, there you go. They're pretending that they know the crack, but clearly they're talking out their ass. But it's Great Britain, British Empire, and UK in relation to it actually is civil liberties in the UK that are shit. Yeah, so, you know, they're playing a little bit of clever there. Tommy Robinson is clearly being treated as an enemy of the state. The mainstream media goes rejoicing at his loss are actually rejoicing at the UK. Well, he's not an enemy of the state, is he? He's an enemy of the United Nations and its forced immigration policies, which the UK, as a corporation, is operating with. I promise you this, though, if I know Tommy Robinson, he'll keep fighting, and as his friend and a journalist, I'll keep telling the truth about it. Millions of people read my live coverage of the hearing on X, so I'm obviously filling the gap left by mainstream media. His next court hearing is just 2 weeks away on April the 11th. I'll be travelling back to London for the hearing, and unlike the BBC monsters who disparage Tommy, I obviously do not receive funding from the government. So if you're in a position to help chip in to cover my travel, please do so. We here at Rebel News can keep shining a light on this important story. Please donate to support our independent reporting of Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson has spent months in brutal solitary confinement and illegal and torturous punishment for a civil prisoner who committed no crime. No, it was a breach of a court order, wasn't it? A court ruling. The mainstream media won't cover this injustice honestly because they hate Tommy, but Rebel News will. We're fighting to expose the truth and show the world what's really happening. The British government wants to silence Tommy. but we won't let them. If you believe in free speech and justice, please chip in to help us continue reporting on this outrageous abuse of power. Every dollar helps us stand up to censorship and fight back and show the world the truth about the persecution of Tommy Robinson. And so 25, 50, 75, even £2.5 or more, single or monthly. There you go. See, they want Ezra Levent, rebel commander. He is there. So there we go. And he's an author of multiple best-selling books, including Ethical Oil, The Libranos, China Virus, and most recently, Trudeau's Secret Plan. So, there's the report. A judge said, a judge rules. Now then, let's just have a little look at the reality of, if I could that. So, there are results. These are results for can a judge determine the prison accommodation for a prisoner, okay? Search instead for can a judge determine the prison accommodation, okay? Now, overview. No, a judge does not determine where a prisoner will be housed. The prison service, HM Prison and Probation Service, makes that decision after a sentence is passed, based on available resources and guidelines. Here's a more detailed explanation. The judge's role. The judge's responsibility is to determine the sentence, not the location where it will be served. Prison Service's role. Once a sentence is handed down, the HM Prison and Probation Service takes over the responsibility of managing the offender, including deciding where they will be housed. Factors considered. The prison service considers factors like security needs, available resources, and the offender's individual circumstances when determining where to place a prisoner. Prisoner movement. Prisoners can be moved between prisons and within prisons as needed throughout their sentence. Initial placement. Newly sentenced prisoners are typically sent to a secure prison initially, where they undergo an assessment to determine the appropriate category of prison for the remainder of their sentence. But there's the most important. No, a judge does not determine where a prisoner will be housed. And yet, judge rules for solitary confinement. So, there you can see, they're being disingenuous in the reporting. It's got nothing to do with a judge. Now, obviously they have to cite it such because they're pushing all this on the courts itself, because this is the only way they can get your money. Either for him to carry on reporting, or in Tommy's case, for him to keep hiring King's Counsel. And so you can see that's why they have to keep it fixed on court and judge, rather than the prison service, which is the ones that deal with, you know, once you're sentenced, you've gone. You're out the court, the ship's it's done, you're off the ship, you're into the hands of another system. It's got nothing to do with the judge. So that is disingenuous. Not only is it disingenuous, it's actually a lie. And as I've said, it's specific for them to be able to fleece the fruit bats. So, you know, it's things like that that you need to look at and consider when you're cocking your eye at what's happening with Tommy Robinson. And of course, they have to do this because everything they're doing is to build up this movement for civil unrest, to get this racial game kicked off, when in truth, all that needs to happen is that people realise that this that's going on here is an imperial gig. All the immigrants are under the imperial forces, as is the United Nations, ultimately operating for the bankers. And, more importantly, that instead of focusing on the religion, which is just a cover to keep the people that are not very bright and all that controlled. At its core, what Islam is just a bank. It's another bank. The mosque is a bank. And that bank extorts its balance sheet from its communities. It extorts it from taxes on those it claims to conquer. Jizya. And if you don't want to pay the tax, or rather if you don't want to convert to Islam, you have to pay the tax. If you don't pay the tax, they kill you. That's their doctrine. So that's the religious side of it, why we don't want it. But more importantly, it's just a bank. And it's a banking system that, again, is fronting the real beneficiaries of it, which is the House Palavicini, who we've looked at, operates for the House Farnese, who it would appear operate for the Borgia. Is it Borgia? Yeah, I think so. So, and of course the Borgia have had popes, like the Medici. Of course, the Medici now, you've got, since Charles II, the majority of the aristocracy are of Charles II's bastard lines, which is of Medici. You've got a queen today, a fake queen, Camilla, again, Medici. So you can see the fixation, if you look at it at the background, it's still the Holy See, whichever way you look at it. It's the Holy See, banking families. Now I'm having full control of everything. And it's just a bank. It's all it is. But Tommy wants you to fix to the religious side of it to infuriate you. Where if everybody just thought, well, hang on a minute, that's low-grade thinking, let's just look a little bit higher. It's just another banking system that's more severe in the fact that it extorts. It gains its money through extortion. You know, the current banking system, albeit corrupted in the sense you put your money in, you're lending it to the bank when they don't tell you, it's still an option. You want to go. But in this game, with the religious connotations, if you don't want to convert, then they pay a tax. If you don't want to pay a tax, they will kill you. Or rather, they kill the males, or at least chop their arms and legs off and enslave the females. That's the doctrine. And I don't care what anybody might, just because you've not read it. You know, I'm sick of coming against people who are experts when it's proven that they haven't got a fucking clue what they're talking about. No idea what they're talking about. Yeah, they'll sit there. I mean, it's okay to be ignorant of things. It's acceptable. Nobody can expect everybody to know about everything. It's impossible. But once it's established that you're actually ignorant of the facts, for you to continue on that stand shows that you're just a fucking infant. You're still a child. Throwing your dummy out at the cot and striking and having a fit because you can't answer the question and you've had to see for yourself that you actually don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And that's the position of most people. It really is. And I'm tired of it. You know, if you have not read the doctrine, the book and the hadiths, then don't stand there and claim that you know what you're talking about. Because you don't. It's that simple. You've got to understand the subject matter if you're going to get anywhere with it. And it's as simple as that. And so that's what's going on. This is why they've imported all these immigrants from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, through Turkey, Russia, all the back end of Russia. This is where it's all coming from, because that's where they're setting up the new system. We've looked at all this. So Tommy Robinson, you've got to understand, his job is to create at least 5 to 7% of people working together. But the people, when you look at the people he's gathering, they're not the intelligent people. They're not the educated people. They're the guys that were broken as children and then moved into the racist organisations, that moved into the hooliganism side of things. Now, I'm not poo-pooing that. Lads need to be lads, and if that's what you like, that's fine. But you at least accept and acknowledge that, you know, when you're doing that, you're not exactly thinking above that level. And you're easily trapped. You're easily coerced into doing things without recognising what the connotations of you acting out your own things are actually going to achieve. You know, and then, like I said last week, they'll take you out. You'll be the first people to be banged up. And I very much doubt you'll come back out. And again, they will remove this art of war system where they're weakening the enemy. They will remove, yet again, males that have the capacity to do what's required in these situations. And you're going to be left with all the pussies. Which is what they've been doing for a long time. Launching the drugs did a lot of that. It got rid of so many of the lads that had a bit about them into that, banged up, or died on drugs, or killed in the system that was set up in the drugs game, where it's step out of line and you're going to get shot, kind of thing. And they've got rid of so many guys that way, and this is the next phase in that. You've really got to see who this guy is, and more importantly, how he's going to be raised up when he's released, because it's going to have a big American backing. It's very important that people get this. You've got Jordan Peterson, you've got Andrew Tate, you've got Alex Jones, and a plethora of other American, players in this no-hide system. Be aware of it, because that's exactly what they're going to do. And if you know people that are into that, this is what you need to get them to start to acknowledge and think, because you're being set up, and you're not seeing it because you're focused through your emotions to the picture that they're presenting around this particular guy. If we're not careful, it's going to make manifest what it is they want. And that'll be enough to call in these United Nations troops that are already in all these hotels, waiting in the wings, to get on the streets and start telling you how it is. So, which way do you want it? Do you know what I mean? You want to give yourself a chance? Don't play the game. Do not give them this. Because that's exactly what they're trying to do. And it's same in America with all this. Once Trump gets knocked off, pretending, of course, then you're going to start seeing Americans out on the street with guns. And that's exactly what they need. Civil war. Civil unrest to call in these outside military forces, because your forces are going to be out there for the bogeyman that's Vladimir Putin. Which brings me to our next gig. Putin went to church to pray and commissioned a special portrait of Trump after assassination attempt. Now, we all know that assassination attempt was garbage. It was utter shit. It was fake up, nonsense shit. Them two are in bed together on the fact that they've both been financed, supported, and believe in the Snowhide Trust. And back in the background, they're working together to basically annihilate Europe. They move the bed basket, which is what they're doing. It's that's the real agenda. Trump's doing a lot of good in America. Don't get me wrong, but that's just to keep you focused to that side of it, so you're not seeing this other side. So it's there to be seen if you pull it out, if you're prepared to look a little bit deeper than what they project all over the show out of these big arenas like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. And although Joe Rogan does touch on some pretty good stuff sometimes, I have to say, but they're all in bed together. They are working together in the fact that they're not talking about certain things, which in and of itself prevents you from seeing the full picture. And as long as they can keep you focused to left and right, then you're fixed to left and right, and you're only seeing a small part of the game. And that's how they beat you. That's how they've always beat us. Just giving you a portion, you accept it, you don't do any legwork yourself, and it plays itself out. Surely, we're at a point now where, after the internet, you've seen more than enough out there to see that these official stories They're utter shit, they're garbage. It's not real. It's just not real. Right, who's joined us? Kerry says, love from Ireland, love back to Ireland, evening Kerry. Paul Sefton says, good evening Sean, chat and viewers. Evening Paul. Slipknot says, alright Sean and everyone, evening Slipknot. House of CC are in disguise, evening to you. June says, good evening on chat, evening June. Lone Rizzler, hey, how you doing buddy? Evening all Sean at the Wise Asylum, been away a few weeks, hiding from reality anyway. Well, glad that you're back sir, and I hope things are getting a bit better for you. Jerry says, Soylent GM. GRN, sorry. Evening Jerry. Jane says, evening Sean chat, AMG, evening Jane. How do Sean? All in the White Asylum says Jerry. Evening Jerry. Upward dog. Evening Sean and all. Hope you've had a great week. Interesting week for sure. Evening Upward. Jane says, hi Rizzler, good to see you back. Cheers Jane, got some homework to do, says Lone Rizzler. Benefactor, hi Sean and the Wise Asylum team, evening Benefactor. Jerry gives it the thumbs up, evening. Oh, sorry, that's Lone Rizzler. Jerry says, welcome back, Lone Rizzler. Yuli, eat, sleep, rinse, repeat. Yeah, that's about where they've got everybody. Yuli says, hey Sean and chat, evening to you. Ed Freedom, hi Sean, good evening. Evening to you, Ed. Welcome. House of C says, fools believe. It's just too many fools, that's the problem. And it's, you know, they're building it up now and they're getting all these people excited. Tommy's going to be out, we're going to do whatever it says. I mean, one day it's going to come to that. We know that. But they don't have that coming when they want it, because it plays in their plan, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's worrying that people are foolish and believe. So agreed. Better to be friend of the court. No, because we played it in honour. We did. Hans Klein came in honour. It's they that are in dishonour at all points. And I recorded the entire gig, all of it, every single bit. So there is the evidence for a start. You know, so we'll see. AMG, hello to all non-mutants and to long legs. Evening, AMG. Tommy Robinson would be Prime Minister. Good God, can you think? Perish the thought. Oh, that's shut up. Says Slipknot. Jane gives it the summer. I don't know what that is. Nigel Fatorse will be Queen. He's getting so sticky, isn't he? AMG, alright mate, I'm focusing a minute. Right, we're over there. Ed says, Slipknot, no more PMs after Kia. Do you think so? Now that might be interesting. Oh, Tommy, he's even shorter than Jane. Or is like MG, thanks man. I'm not stroking bollocks, but I appreciate that last week, mate. Much appreciated. Mark says, hello, Sean, and all evening. Mark, you're off the ship. I'd love to know more about this. Reliable info. Hard to find these guys. Well, actually, yeah, because prison, you mean this. Interesting. Weefy man, evening, my lights, evening, Weefy man. Zelensky did the same. Nothing new. Bullseye, says Ulick. Dreen, hi Sean folks, I couldn't get on YT at all on anything, even though the broadband on, etc. Last 4 days, it's been impossible to watch certain things. But easy to watch how to upcycle your own farts. I wonder what problems, why you're having so many problems. Have you actually rang them and said, look, go to your contract and say what they said that they could give you. And just say, look, you're in breach of contract. I'm not receiving that. You know, it's worth a try. Mew says, morning, afternoon, evening, one and all. Welcome to the Wise Asylum inmates, or eat Sean, or eat Mew. And we're on £340 for the microphone, by the way. I just thought I'd tell you. Thanks very much to all that donated. It's really nice to see you do that. Thank you. Relying again on my mobile, but I caught that. But TR pity so. fall for this trap. They are, of course. John Francis Goldford, thanks, John. Tree says, that little brown shirt reminded me of how Hitler started. Tommy Robinson, I mean, says Tree. Well, it's yeah, I mean, they just excite the masses, really, don't they? Lex says, evening, Sean, all evening. Lex, double S. Stephen Yaxley being Tommy Robinson's real name, that's right. Yeah, Yaxley, not Laxley. Why do I keep saying Laxley? Because I'm not really interested, really. But there's big talk going on about him. You know what I mean? I think, talking to some people though, I think people are starting to see the cracks in it, in a lot of sense. But I still think there is a lot. Yeah, that's right. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, that's right. Yeah, I think people are starting to see the cracks, which is good. But there does seem to still be a lot of people ready to get in there. Double S says he's pro-Israel. Well, he was completely recruited by that, as we've explored before when he was in the BNP. Nick Griffin has explained that in detail, what actually happened there. When he was approached by the Israel lobby, and they said they'd fund him, they'd promote it, they'd support it, but he had to cease speaking about Israel. He said no, but when they got into Tommy said yeah, and formed the EDL. So yeah, absolutely, he's not just pro-Israel, he's controlled by it completely. I mean, if you look at his strategy since he went to become the EDL, it is their strategy in its entirety. Yeah, give him a call, Treen. Yeah, it's a good idea. Give him a call. You might as well. If you just look at your contract and you always brag about what they're going to give you, and just say, look, well, I'm not getting that. It's clearly a breach of contract, which it is. Laxative, no doubt. Double S says, clapping Nigeria. Lennon, aka Lenin, well, good info, thanks. No problem. But yeah, I mean, that is exactly what happened. And actually, Nick Griffin got a bad press after he said no. That's when he was fully attacked. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not in sync with these people because, of course, British National Party, again, it's not really England, is it? The jocks don't like the English. It's not going to work. It's English. It's England that's been demolished. It's England that's been sidelined. It's England that's no monarch. It's all about getting rid of the place that gave the freedom to the world. That's what it's about. And if they can get this new bank in, then freedom has gone right out the window. Because if there's one bunch that's not free, then that would be those that follow the imams that call themselves Islam. He's not following the book, but they call themselves Islam. So there we go. AMG. Double Dawn News did a great expose of his funders, really. Double Dawn News. Well, that's good. I haven't seen that. But yeah. Well, that'd be good if they give. Are they all of the Zionist ilk? John says Danny Tomo just posted a Tommy update at prison. His channel is now Unite the Kingdom. 7 minutes 11 seconds long. Ton May is living off tuna again, by golly. Well, the prison system doesn't feed its inmates just wanting a tuna. Let's be frank about it. It's not how it works, is it? I mean, I'm not saying the food's good, I don't know. But I know a lot of guys that have been in and out of prison and they seem alright, it's not, anyway, a tin of tuna. It's just all propaganda, just to excite that emotion. But there you've got blatant lies. Judge, court, it's got nothing to do with judge and court. Prison service and probation service decide what happens to a prisoner once they've left the court and have been sentenced. So, it has to be court, judge, so that they can gain this money influx when they're claiming that they need KCs and all this malarkey. Why? Because it works. And it does work. If they give it publicity, you see, the right publicity is what it takes to push you from oblivion up there on the stage of La La Land. And you can see that they're using all them tricks with Tommy. And fair play to that lad, he's not had an easy time. He's done his thing and he's kept it going, but it comes to naught when you know you're being backed by something you shouldn't be allowing yourself to be backed with. It's that simple. Like the £3.5 million they threw at me the other week. Still there, by the way. Still there. I just sent her an email back just saying, because he sent me an email saying, oh, why haven't you responded? So I just said, well, just an issue we just need to address, my friend. And so I sent him a link to this stuff. I said, I'm sure you can level it out. Best regards. And but obviously there's nothing come back because you can't level that out. It's impossible. But the £3.5 million is still there. I can still access it. But I'm not going to fucking touch it, of course. Why would I do that? I know what it is. I know what it'd mean. There's no way I'm going to fucking touch it. Not a cat in house chance. And I think last week somebody mentioned 3.5, and it didn't twig what you were talking about, but yeah, it's still there. Still there, and I still have access. But there's not a cat in house chance am I touching it. Why would I? I'd be Tommy Robinson then, wouldn't I? So then I'd be talking out my ass, wouldn't I? So no, I'd rather not talk out my ass and keep it as it is. And then have a massive influx of cash, go and buy myself all my fucking fancy thing. But to be obedient to some shit ass, it's not happening. I don't like being obedient at best of times. Right, so now, KFC, have you seen this advert? Now, obviously, I'm not going to show it because it'll probably breach copyright of some description, but I'm sure you've seen this advert. It came out maybe a couple of weeks ago where cannibals, it's all this malarkey, golden egg. I mean, what's this? Which came first, chicken or the egg? What? I don't know. A golden egg. And it pretty much ends with this kid being dipped into this river, comes out and he's a fucking chicken leg or a chicken breast. Now, that, and then in the back, the Unga Bunga kind of crew with the cannibal kind of stuff. Now, you've seen Finkelstein's report telling you clearly that they've been using McDonald's for getting rid of the deceased people forever. Or is it now being announced that that's exactly what the KFC are up to? So I don't bloody know, but it certainly has them kind of connotations if we're truthful. So we can look at some who owns. What's crack with KFC? What the hell is going on with that? Because it's a bit crazy, isn't it? Let's be honest. So where are we here? Now we'll kick off with EG Group because they did have quite a number of franchises. So I asked the question, who is the owner of KFC in UK? And it came back. The EG Group has sold its 218 KFC franchise restaurants in the UK to KFC owner Yum Brands to continue to pay down debt. So they're trying to pay down debt and they've sold their 218k franchises because they've now got halal chicken in its entire gig. More money to the new bank, as it were. So that deal's done. Now it's gone back to Yum. And a similar thing's going on with Yo, the sushi bars that you find in the Tesco's. They're franchising out. And experience I've had of late with one of them is there's some very sinister people that are being given these franchisees, especially in the realm of sexual deviancy, I have to say. I'll say no more about it, but I have first-hand knowledge of that very thing. So these franchises, when I was looking at this particular scenario, it looked like the government are giving finance to sexual deviants to take over existing companies and potentially using that to accuse people, normal people that are in the employment realm, of certain things that are not true. And it looks government are funding it, Keir Starmer. And then they've done more, they've just done a raft of statutes about sexual deviancy in work and all this stuff. It didn't look good when I looked into it, this thing that I was aware of last year. It really didn't look good, and it did look like government are funding offenders to get involved with these franchises, and it's just a mess. Obviously, it would need more investigation from me if I were to put it up as a report, but you know, there were enough data there to show that it's not far off what I've just expressed to you there. The deal announced today for undisclosed terms will see the KFC franchise in the UK and Ireland sold to the brand's US ownership group, and that was the 7th of December 2023. So EG Group are out the mix when it comes to what's going on now with this strange set of very strange set of advertising coming out of on the TV. Now, where are we? Let me just have a look. Right, so I then looked at Yum Brands. What are they? And Yum Brands Inc. is an American multinational fast food corporation. It is a spin-off of PepsiCo, so Pepsi Cola, after they acquired KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. PepsiCo divested the brands in 1997, and these consolidated as Yum. Now it says, founder was a guy called Andrel E. Pearson, headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky, United States. CEO as of 1st of January 2020 was David Gibbs. Don't think that's the guy now. Founded 30th of May 1997. Formerly Tricon Global Restaurants Inc. Number of employees, 1,850,143. Company itself and all subsidiaries combined, including Yum China. Number of locations, 58,000. And that's as of 2023. So this is a big gig, and it would take something like Pepsi Cola to set this up. It'd have to be a huge gig. What else have we got here? Yum China Holdings. Now, Yum China Holdings Inc. is an American-Chinese Fortune 500 fast food restaurant company based in Shanghai, China, with US 9.5 billion in revenue and 10,600 restaurants worldwide. And then that's from Wikipedia, which we'll have a look at again in a minute to have a bit of a fuller look. Stock price, US $52.26 cents, and that's 21st of March. CEO Joey Watt, that's 1st of March 2018. Subsidiaries, Taco Bell, Little Sheep Group, headquarters Shanghai, CFO Andy Young, no relative. CTO Leila Zhang, founded 1st of November 2016, and there's its ISIN number. What else have we got? So, I think we just got one more image. Just Yum Pepsi, so it's just a bit of a... So no, Yum Brands is not owned by PepsiCo. It was spun off from PepsiCo in 1997 and now operates as an independent company. Here's a more detailed explanation. Yum Brands origins. Yum Brands was formed in 1997 as a spin-off from PepsiCo, which had previously owned and franchised the KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell brands worldwide. Independent company. After the spin-off, Yum Brands became an independent company, meaning it is no longer part of PepsiCo ownership structure. Current brands. Yum Brands owns franchises like KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut and the Habit Burger Grill. PepsiCo now focuses on its core business of packaged food and beverages, including brands like Pepsi, Lay's and Quaker. Which doesn't mean that they're not supplying Taco Bell, Pizza Hut and such with packaged food. Because this again is what they do. They'll set up another company, giving its freedom, but then this company's buying its produce or a big part of its produce from. So on paper it's not a part of it, it's nothing to do, it's independent, but as part of the deal it's actually still purchasing from the same. So that's another way that they work these situations as well. Right, so judge rules for solitary. I don't think so. So Yum Brands. Yum Brands Inc., sometimes called simply Yum, is an American multinational fast food corporation. It's a spin-off of PepsiCo. After they acquired KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, PepsiCo divested the brands in 1997 and consolidated as Yum. The company operates KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell and Habit Burger and Grill since 2020, except in China, where the brands are operated by another company known as Yum China. Yum, previously owned by Long John Silver's and A&W Restaurants. Yum was founded as Tricon Global Restaurants after PepsiCo finalised the split. In 2002, they took their current name after they merged with Yorkshire Global Restaurants, which at the time was the parent company of A&W, who also spun off an international branch. Based in Louisville, Kentucky, Yum is one of the world's largest fast food restaurant companies in terms of system units. Among the fast food chains operated by Yum Brands, KFC is relocating its US corporate headquarters from Louisville, Kentucky to Plano, Texas. Yum announced on Tuesday, February 18, 2025, about 100 corporate workers will move from Louisville to Plano in the next 6 months. As a result, according to the company, This is interesting as well. Texas was a state born and birthed on the back of the expulsion of the Jews in 1492, and they caused pretty much chaos in Mexico, and eventually created Texas. It's probably one of the oldest states, and it's interesting how so much now is being shifted to Texas in the US. Very interesting indeed. Where are we there? In 2016, Yum had 43,617 restaurants, including 2,859 that were company owned and 40,758 that were franchised in 135 nations and territories worldwide. Due to it being a spin-off of PepsiCo, all restaurants owned by this company do not serve Coca-Cola as a soft drink and instead serve Pepsi. New Zealand restaurants serve Coca-Cola. History. The company's history began in 1977 when PepsiCo entered the restaurant business by acquiring Pizza Hut from co-founders Dan and Frank Carney. A year later, PepsiCo purchased Taco Bell from founder Glenn Bell. In July 1986, R.J. Reynolds sold KFC to PepsiCo to pay off a debt from its recent purchase of Nabisco. In 1990, Hot and Now was acquired via Taco Bell from William Van Dommelin, but the company was sold in 1996. In 1992, PepsiCo acquired California Pizza Kitchen. In 1993, it acquired Chevy's Fresh Mex, D'Angelo Grilled Sandwiches, and the American division of Canadian chain Eastside Mario's. These chains were later sold when PepsiCo exited the restaurant business and spun off KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. In 1997, PepsiCo sold PepsiCo Food Systems Restaurant Supply Unit to Ameriserve Food Distribution Inc. Tricon Global Restaurants. Yum was created in 1997 as Tricon Global Restaurants Inc. from PepsiCo's fast food division, as the parent corporation of the KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell restaurant companies. The decision was announced in January and the spin-off was effected on October the 6th. Tricon selected Louisville, also the site of KFC's headquarters, as its corporate headquarters. Taco Bell and Pizza Hut continue to be headquartered in Irvine, California and Dallas, Texas, respectively. So there's a Texas connection there. In 2000, Tricon Global tested multi-brand locations with Yorkshire Global Restaurants. By March 2002, the Tricon Yorkshire multi-branding test consisted of 83 KFCs, A&Ws, 6 KFC, Long John Silver's and 3 Taco Bell. Long John Silver's was considered successful by the companies. In 2001, KFC started test restaurants in Austin, Texas called Wingworks, a chicken wing line sold with one of the few flavoured sauces. KFC also hired a consultant to develop a breakfast menu. In March 2002, Yorkshire announced it would merge with Tricon Global Restaurants to form Yum Brands. The merger was finalised on May the 8th, 2002, and the name change became effective in May 22nd, 2002. I don't think we need to really go through that really, but international focus. In January 2011, Yum announced its intention to dispose of its Long John Silver and A&W brands to focus on its core brands of KFC, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. So EG have been tied in with this. So it's all part of the same. Mongolia, Ramallah, West Bank. So Target stores are also involved there. They were opening them in Target stores. Goa. Yeah. Okay. I'm in burger. So there we go. There's plenty going on. The current CEO of Yum Brands is David Gibbs. Former CEOs include Greg Creed and David C. Novak. Novak became CEO of predecessor firm Tricon Global. Greg Creed replaced Novak, blah, 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 blah. Robert D. Walter. Kentucky Derby, so they've been sponsoring that. Here we go. This is interesting. On October the 20th, 2015, Yum Brands announced that it's intended to separate to two independent publicly traded companies. Yum China was spun off on November the 1st, 2016, and Yum China's operation excluded stores in Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan, which are franchised from Yum Brands through Jardine Matheson unit, Jardine Pacific, Jardine Restaurant Group. Well, isn't that interesting? Jardine Matheson, big player in the Opium Wars, so a big part of the East India companies, and has always been extremely connected to all British intelligence operations of the military kind in other nations, of subversion, of course. So Jardine Matheson is in there. That's interesting, and in fact, if nothing else, that alone is worth looking at what this game is. So if you're looking at Jardine Matheson, then you're looking back at these crazy advertisement games, then Tavistock is in there. So that's the wiki on Yum Brands. What's this? Yum Brands owns over 50,000 restaurants in 150 countries around the world, operating global brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. Brands in Yum China, on average, Yum Brands open 9 new restaurants every day and is owned by over 2,000 franchisees around the world. Its ranking position is 104. His total score is 27.4. It says, ranking 10th in the food and agricultural benchmark, Yum Brands does not show leading practices in topics relevant to the benchmark. Nonetheless, the company demonstrates a commitment towards conducting its business in a more sustainable way. Well then, there you go. There's no question that they're going to start messing around with the chicken to make it sustainable. And of course, at the rate that they're killing off the humans, it would make perfect sense as a business plan for sustainability to start sticking humans in the KFC mix, would it not? So that makes sense to me. See, sustainable. killing humans, it makes sense that they're going to start sticking humans in all the food chain. It's perfect. Doesn't score rate well on government's strategy, environment, not very good, nutrition, it's shit, and social inclusion is not very good either. But look at that nutrition. That's really not good, is it? And restaurants and food service, it gets a 7. So it's pretty shit, really, all round. Now it wants to feed your grandma. Young Brands Inc. Here we go. So this is Yahoo Finance. 156.75, which is minus 1.14. Minus 0.72%. Now, major holders. Breakdown. 0.16% of shares held by All Insider. 86.72% of shares held by institutions. 86.86% of float held by institutions. And 1,653 number of institutions holding shares. Top institutional holders. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Vanguard Group, 33.63 million shares. BlackRock, 26,772 million shares. JP Morgan, Capital International Investors, State Street Corporation, T. Rowe. So all the usual suspects. So this idea of China, America, it's just for the consumption of those that haven't recognised yet that actually it's a global corporation that's taking over the entire world, and they're just using this window of opportunity they have to keep up the pretense that this is competing nations. It's not. And of course the big corporate system is what? It's just a front for the banking families. That's all it is. Oh dear. So Sustainable Growth Advisors are in there. Capital World Investors, Sustainable Growth Advisors. Mutual Fund Holders. Washington Mutual Investors Fund. Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. Vanguard 500 Index Fund. Vanguard Mid Cap Index Fund. Fidelity 500 Index Fund. SPDR and S&P 500. JP Morgan Equity Premium Income. iShares Core, Vanguard Growth Index Fund, and T. Rowe Price Mid Cap Growth. So, no surprise there when it comes to actually who's really benefiting from this garbage. What's this? Yum, the world's largest restaurant company. 4 iconic brands, approximately 1,500 franchisees operating more than 61,000 restaurants in 155 plus countries and territories, with over 1 million employees and franchise team members, millions of customers served daily, 65,400,000,000 total system sales, and 30 billion in digital sales. Oh my God. So that's, well, if there's only 30 billion in digital sales, that means that there's 35 billion people are still using cash. So they've not fully achieved this digital switch, have they, in relation to the population? Don't get me wrong, they've gained a big move on it since COVID. What's this? Encyclopedia.com. Young Brands Inc. 1441 Gardeners Lane, Louisville, Kentucky. Public company incorporated, employees, sales 7.7 billion. 2002. It's a bit more than that now, lads. When was this made? It's not good as a date. Stock Exchange, New York, Young Brands Inc. operates. We've looked at all this stuff, haven't we? We've looked at all this. Sometimes you can gain that little bit more. No. Pepsi ads Taco Bell, no. World War II, what's that? The Taco Bell brand was launched in 1962 by Glenn Bell, a World War II veteran. Okay. KFC deal. February 1952 by Hoyland Saunders. Kentucky Fried Chicken. The company's name was changed to KFC Corp in 1991. Was added to PepsiCo's holdings in 1986 in a $840 million deal. The company had spent much of the decade skewing profits and expanding, and PepsiCo believed it would be a successful addition to its burgeoning restaurant portfolio. While KFC's international division saw significant growth during the 1990s, domestic sales were sluggish due to intense competition and failed product launches. To top it off, relations between its parent company and franchisees had deteriorated, and PepsiCo was not seeing the return on assets that it saw with its beverages and snack food divisions. As such, PepsiCo decided to exit the restaurant business altogether. And we've gone through a lot of this stuff, so not really much point going through this again. But there's quite a bit of data on, so and there you've got key dates. Right, so, and then I think the final one. This is everything that is actually owned by PepsiCo. So a little look. Good grief, that's quite a lot of Doritos, Dr. Pepper, Ruffles, Quaker, Smart Foods, Tropicana, Subway, which are doing some extremely naughty things in all the stuff, even the coffees. Look at that. Look at all them things that you're buying every day. Bloody hell. Walker's crisps. Well, that's the rule. See, the problem with crisps today is everything's done in seed oil. Really not good stuff. And I've even seen some stuff that's suggesting on the suggestion line that the seed oil could be contributing to this this massive Alzheimer's and dementia. Aquafina, Lipton, Doritos, Fritos, Lay's, Sun Chips, Ruffles. A lot of these are probably in America, but Tropicana products. Rockstar Energy. My God, how big was that in a lot of these computer games that your kids have all been playing? Rockstar, yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? Cola Wars and Pepsi marketing. There we go. A bit of a better Fruit Shoot. Mountain Dew, don't know what that is. There's a lot of stuff there that I don't actually know. Schweppes. And Schweppes has never tasted the same for donkeys. Because one of the first things you do is put in all that sweetener stuff in it. I mean, a lot of these things are not necessarily things you get here, but that's a lot of stuff to get in there. International brand 7-Up. Oh dear, that's a lot. It's big. Walker's crisps. Jonathan Fenniak. There he is. Odd looking critter. Oh, Jonathan is admitted to practice law. See, all these corporations are all run by attorneys. I mean, what was that film that Al Pacino played in where he was explaining that the devil is the legal system? And that's what the man back in the day was, in all this symbolism that we get with it. He's giving you the way out. It's this system is Babylon. So there you go. He's a lawyer. Surprise, surprise. Is anybody surprised by that? A lawyer. Well. Good grief. What else have we got? There were some things that we didn't check out last week. Where are we?
Smart Cities initiative essentially outlines what critics are calling a dystopian future. Under the guise of sustainability, this program centralizes control over resources, allowing access to food, energy, and mobility to be revoked at the push of a button. Critics like Shyam Batra, a candidate for mayor of London, warn of a dystopian society where dissent is punished and compliance enforced through the suspension of vital services.
Basically, you won't be able to drive a petrol or diesel car anymore. If you want food, you will get a calorie-controlled system sent to you by text saying, this is what you can eat today. If you violate any of these things, they'll freeze your bank account. We are going to be in an open prison.
Features include global digital IDs assigned at birth, 15-minute cities restricting residents to localized zones and limiting movement, services such as food rations and transportation distributed digitally, raising fears of a social credit system to monitor and control behavior, dissenting opinions, social media posts, non-compliance with policies, or even hypothetical health crises could trigger punitive measures. The initiative is already active in London with plans to expand globally under agenda. So far, nearly 200 nations have joined this initiative. Whoa.
Attention, you have exceeded your monthly carbon credit allowance. All non-essential energy services have been temporarily suspended. To restore power and ensure continued vehicle functionality, please remit payment to the Global Sustainability Compliance Authority within 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in extended service interruptions. Thank you for your cooperation in building a greener future.
The World Economic Forum's C40 Smart Cities initiative.
So, sustainability, that's what we've just seen in this new gig, innit? So KFC, they're all moving into this behaviour. So I mean, when I watched that video, advertisement, I just thought this is a Tavistock game, this for sure. And so it's all interlinked, and that's where it's heading, folks. So you keep putting your money into these places. I mean, it's like the new bank. You're funding it, you're playing into it, and you're not seeing it. If you want to do this correctly, then you've got to stop putting your energy and your finance into what it is that you actually don't like, but you've not seen beyond the curtain that they give you to know how to actually move against it without getting Tommy Robinson's happy gangsters up and running and causing chaos. You've got to think. Wait a minute. I'm just going to have to...
Were the principles of Marvin Bush, the president's brother, and their cousin, Wirt Walker, were the principals of the company that was in charge of security for the World Trade Center. They don't...
The jaw-dropping coincidences kept piling up. I learned that Stratesec was a security company which used to be called Securicom, and they didn't just handle security for the World Trade Center complex. They had contracts with Dulles International Airport, from where Flight 93 departed, and United Airlines, accounting for most of the security breakdowns on 9/11. And another thing, Stratesec also handles security for Los Alamos National Labs, one of the only places on the planet that can produce the nanothermite found in the ground zero dust. The odds are pretty astonishing that one company can link so many vital elements of 9/11. But more astonishing is there's no mention of Stratesec or Securicom in the entire 567-page 9/11 Commission report. Of course, that was no surprise by now. Did I forget to mention that that same 9/11 Commission did not mention the collapse of Building 7 in the entire report either?
Why is there not a word about the collapse of that building in the 9/11 Commission report?
We didn't see any evidence of the kind of thing you're talking about.
I didn't think this was something done by terrorists anymore, nor did I think this was done by any one man, even if a president. How does he get nanothermite? How does he get NORAD, the FAA, and our air defenses to look the other way? Or get access to the interior of all 3 towers? Or get 19 guys to kill themselves? Or get NIST and the 9/11 Commission to tank their investigations? Or keep the media quiet? Or keep a rival administration from exposing it? No. This seemed much bigger than even a president, and impossible for a man on the run. If someone like me with no budget or staff can find something clearly wrong with Building 7's collapse, how could an entire government commission fail to mention it in their report? Something big and strange was coming into view, seemingly coordinated and almost invisible, like 1,000 more puzzle pieces dumped out before me. I couldn't see the bigger picture yet, but I knew there was one, and it involved powerful elements of our world.
Marvin Bush, the president's brother, and their cousin.
So they're just links that we haven't actually put up that were on this stuff that I put together tonight. So it's always worth looking at that. But yeah, I mean, I've said it before, didn't you? The security company was run by the Bushes, but also I think it's 6 months before they said renewing all the fire alarm system in the building. Obviously, they were planting all the explosives in there, and again, that company were tied to one of the Bush family members. So, but that comes back from Prescott Bush, doesn't it? And then George H. Bush, they were big CIA boys, which means big all-C players. So there's your KFC. If you wanted to know why would this bunch be suggesting that sticking humans in KFC cover is a good idea and that you should eat it. Well, sustainability. Sustainability for the smart cities. I mean, I know it sounds a bit weird and it off goes your power, but there's your smart meter. That's why they want you to have a smart meter. Smart telly, smart everything. You wash them, everything's telling over you. Everything's telling on you. Your washing machine, your television, whatever else you've got smart, your fridge. Everything's telling tales to AI. It's AI that's running it. You know, you've not got somebody there going, oh, but AI's doing the lot. And they've already profiled you from all your biometrics you've put into the machine. It's not good, is it? But there it goes, and it's the big companies that are doing it. And so while we still buy from them, we're basically giving them as power. So this idea that we get back to basics and start to deal direct with the farmers, got to be on the cards. But the farmers have to learn that they can't be expecting us to buy shit direct off them that's been injected with all this shit that they've just injected into the world population. Farmers have to clean up their act. Not stand there telling everybody you can't come on these public right-of-ways anymore because you're frightening our sheep. You know, that's the opposite of let's work together. That's the farmers working for the landed gentry and removing you again back to peasantry off the land. Same with some of these horsey people thinking that they can run around and wherever they go on their horse right away they own it and everybody else has to bend over backwards to not upset their little GG ride. It's there. This is where it's going and this is what they're playing at. But again, a bit like Tommy or a bit like Trump, he's doing good here, but this is what they're really doing. You've got this raise up the farmers, which people agree with, but then in the background they're actually starting to take away your rights when it comes to accessing land, whether it's walking your dog, whether it's kayaking, or just generally walking on the hills and the mountains. They're playing into this game as well. Of course, not all of them, and the smallholders probably not, but these bigger boys who perhaps are renting the land off a bigger boy are being told, you know, you need to start battering these public that have got the dogs off a leash. Well, you know, all dogs want to be off the leash, and don't put your sheep next to public rights of way. That's a sensible option. Not everybody has to obey your gig because you might lose 20 quid when Halal comes to buy his little sheep. Again, another industry serving the new bank. Sheep. No cows, sheep. Who eats sheep? Yeah, they're getting excited about, oh, your dog's killing sheep. Nobody cares about cows being killed. Can you see the dichotomy in it? You've just got to give it a little bit of thought behind these little games that they're all playing. And then you can see what they want you to see, and then you're seeing what they don't want you to see. And when you're seeing what they don't want you to see, you can spread that around. People are fully informed. then they can make the decision. And each time these guys try to up the power, up the control, you can say no thank you very much, you know? And this is the way forward. Not let's all jump behind Tommy and start wrecking our own country and attacking these Johnny foreigners. Even though they're invading, they are invading on behalf of the British Empire. So if you're waving a Union Jack while claiming to be against immigration, you need to stop and think a little bit there, because you're a bit of miss there on the actual reality of the situation. You're waving the flag that's bringing all these lot in. Yeah, you see the game. It's the same game everywhere going on. Now, court. So as you probably gathered, it didn't give us the result we wanted. I have to say my colleague did make a rather serious error, and that's what they jumped on. But in essence, basically how we structured this, etc., with conditional acceptances and such, and I made reference earlier to the fact that they played more, the only thing they were fixed on, in truth, was the validity of the liability orders. Now, what came out in that court was the fact that this is how liability orders work, right? We know that these councils use the courts. Now, it's debatable as to whether they're paying a lease fee or rent fee, or just giving them a percentage of each liability order that they themselves announce in a court building. Either way, the court itself is not involved in the procurement of liability orders, and it has been so since 2003, when Form A and Form B were removed as an instrument by which the court were actually creating these, and therefore they could be classed as a court instrument. So that's the dichotomy. Now, what we learned in that case is that so in a particular day, they might have, say, like 5,000 addresses and liable persons that they're claiming owe money. So, this is what happens. One of their own members sits in that court building and recites it. Now, the council only have to have somebody present at the court to hear it, and then it's classed as valid. Right? Now, in this case, the actual guy that was said to be present wasn't. He was present by being on the telephone. Which, if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Okay? So that was one part of why it's valid. And this is a term that they use at all points. The balance of probability. You'll hear that a lot if you end up in these courts. And on the balance of probability, then I decide it's real. And that's, so balance of probability, we're doing my head in after a while, because that's all this fucking judge and this slick kept espousing on all, about everything. Now the next thing is, so a warrant, for instance, or a statutory demand, which is what's important in relation to insolvency. They are instruments born off the existence of a valid liability order. So it's a secondary instrument. So my point was, if there's no valid liability order, then there can't be any further instruments come from it that have got any capacity or standing. So that's what now, what they said in their skeletal argument, which came to us about maybe 2 weeks before, he pointed out case law and stated that the fact that we hadn't applied to set aside the statutory demand basically meant that we couldn't pay. Okay, even though throughout this entire year, every single communication that we've set forward, if it's, say, conditional acceptance, etc., this is outside just communications that don't require it, it was made absolutely clear that the settlement had been set aside should it be proven that the claim is valid against my colleague. All paperwork was stating that fact. So there was no assumption left. It was made clear that that's what we were saying. Now, that said, after we got the skeletal, I sent paperwork to Blackburn magistrates, which is where they claimed these liability orders had been made. And the same to the guy who'd signed 3 of them off. And again, ambiguous, because it was signed off by this guy and it just said Deputy Chief Executive. Didn't tell you of what. A bit further investigation, you could see clearly that it was the council. So they were signed off by their old man. And there were 3 that were actually claiming to be liability orders signed off by this guy. But the rest were just notifications and didn't have any signature at all. Nothing. Now, in the hearing on the 27th, that's what we queried. That's what the judge said, they're not right. And they haven't changed anything. What they said they had to be amended wasn't amended. What they did do was create new copies of these liability orders, because you can't reissue a liability order that's already been sent, with the council's header on. And it was like, are these people for real? So, before this hearing, it looked to us like they were playing maybe for another adjournment, because what it got adjourned on before, they hadn't actually changed. They didn't change anything. But it was this new case law that he brought out that sort of gave him this balance of probability that they kept using. So basically we said, how can we apply for a statutory demand to be set aside at a court that didn't issue the liability order? It can't be done. And the judge agreed, acknowledged, and you could see he was nodding to that. He knew that it makes sense. You can't possibly apply to have something set aside from a court that didn't create it. You can't apply to the one bringing the claim to set his own claim aside, because it diminishes it. So that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But balance of probability came back. Kept coming back all the time. Now, this is another one. The age-old adage that an offer gets a counter-offer for a meeting of the minds, counter-offer cancels out the original offer, so we're talking conditional acceptance here. Yes, I'll accept your claim on the condition you can answer these questions or blah, blah, blah. And you know that they're not going to respond. Now, in this latest conditional acceptance from January, I made it very clear. You know, as I set it out, I made it exceptionally clear, the terms. So, for instance, when I started off, I was citing last year's conditional acceptance, whereby the point of note was the fact that we made it clear that the settlement was set aside, because they concealed that from the next judge. So to that judge, all he had before him was couldn't pay, because that's what the council had claimed. So they concealed that so that the judge didn't see that it was clear that the settlement had been set aside. But the main issue of this new case was that I sent a brand new conditional acceptance in. Now we cited case law on the silence, so active silence in and of itself is acquiescence. And I also cited the fact that we'd witnessed this in use in the case against his wife last year. Clearly that they were using this acquiescence of silence. Yet, when it came to these conditional acceptances, they brought out nonsense to state that it's not binding. Right? And I used Adams v. Lindsay of 1818. And it's establishing the post rule, which highlights how acceptance of an offer must be communicated to form a binding contract. So there's your contract. And then Ide v. Wrench, 1840, demonstrated that the counter-offer nullifies the original offer. Now, in the terms, we made it clear that if they failed to respond, then they were making the statement, blah, 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 blah. I made that clear. You would think they'd respond. In fact, they've no choice but to respond. When you've made it clear that if you fail to respond within the set time, you are making the statement that, yeah, you can't fulfill this, you can't provide that, whatever it were going into. But they came back with this case law that said, on the balance of probability, the act of silence isn't binding. Yeah? Now, we presented, there's a lot of stuff in here, don't get me wrong. And so then I got into this, who gave you permission to share the personal data of an inhabitant with third parties, i.e. their solicitors? A breach of GDPR. And cited the fact that these people, so that's the council, that's the courts, that's the third parties, all have DUNS numbers. They're all foreign entities, corporate. Now, when you go to Clearfield Doctrine, what's that tell you? A contract has to be in force and presentable by those making the claim. And that referenced the DUNS, because that's clear that they're private corporate for profit. But I got into the inhabitant resident thing and the blind adhesion contracts that they're expressing. And so we went through the fact that they are a private company and that according to the Local Government Act of 1888, Chapter 41, Part V, Section 79 says, the council of each county shall be a body corporate by the name of the county council, with the addition of the name of the administrative county, and shall have perpetual succession and a common seal and power to acquire and hold land for the purposes of their constitution without licence in mortmain. Now, we asked for a copy of the constitution. Didn't come. Won't give it us. Because Lancashire County Council, of course, is no longer a county council. Is it? IBM are running it, it would appear. It was the Blues and Twos Credit Union. So no constitution came, so we couldn't hold them to that. Then, Local Government Act 1888, Chapter 41, Part V, 79, 2 and 3. All duties and liabilities of the inhabitants of a county shall become and be duties and liabilities of the council. So when they incorporated in 1888, it was on the condition that all the duties and liabilities of the inhabitants became their liabilities and duties. Right? So then you're getting into this where they've converted you from an inhabitant into a resident. Now, this is where you get into the blind adhesion contracts, because one is the land registry, which is being carried out by the solicitors when you purchase an house, and they don't tell you. Or if they do, you don't tell you the full connotations of it. So you're not getting full disclosure. And two, you have the postcode, which is a military code administered by the post office for the occupying force. Which is why we bracket the postcode, bracket the house number, and make it clear it's without the United Kingdom. So in all our communications, just by default, you are removing the assumptions that they're taking on these blind adhesion contracts. Postcode, land registry, yeah? You're removing that. So they're still running on assumptions that you've rebutted in all your paperwork. So we got into that, and then we got into the Fraud Act, in relation to false representation. So they were claiming us to be a resident, which is a false representation when you've identified yourself as an inhabitant. And all your paperwork is in synchronicity with that claim. See, this is where you've got to be careful. If you're doing this, you've got to make sure that everything else in there shows that that's the case. Are you with me? So Fraud Act 2006 were brought into it, asking them, is your claim under this act, if it's not in breach? If you fail to respond, then you're making the statement that it in fact is in breach and your claim is invalid. We used Misrepresentation Act. When a person has entered into a contract after a misrepresentation has been made to him otherwise than fraudulently, and he would be entitled by reason of the misrepresentation to rescind the contract, then if it is claimed in any proceedings arising out of the contract that the contract ought to be or has been rescinded, the court or arbitrator may declare the contract subsisting and award damages in lieu of rescission, if of the opinion that it would be equitable to do so, having regard to the nature of the misrepresentation and the loss that would be caused by it if the contract were upheld. Now, the fact that they've misrepresented you by addressing you as a resident on a blind adhesion contract without giving you full disclosure, in and of itself, there is no contract. Now, okay, it's clear that the councils, they don't have a contract. Fine. But when you're getting into court at the beginning, as you know yourself, you've got the argy-bargy in relation to, is Mr. Johnny Lipstick here today? And you go, no, I'm here. Well, we'll record that Mr. Johnny Lipstick hasn't appeared in court today. We'll continue without him. You've got to get through that. So what I put together with this to get us going, basically. Now, they changed their format slightly because they knew we were going to do that. So I just put this together. With all due respect for and on the record, it is imperative that we fully comprehend to whom or what the claim is addressed. Your insistence that Mr. Johnny Lipstick is not present suggests that you wish me to identify as being deceased. That would further suggest that necromancy is being employed. If it is I, the flesh and blood man here present, to whom the claim is addressed, then a mutually agreed contract to which the claimant is claiming I have failed to perform an obligation is required, which to date, counsel to my left has failed to produce. We've consistently asked for a contract. Okay, and that's because we know they're flipping you. They need you to come in and identify as that deceased estate. Because, so in essence, they are eating you, flesh and blood, but you have to come in and identify as it. Then in their little system, their playtime system, they're in honour. So we know that's going on. If it is the deceased estate to which the claim is being made, which it is, because that's how they write it, however, through this entire time, the actual solicitors, the third parties, have addressed my colleague in lots of different ways. It's confusing. Uppercase, then in normal grammar. And then we handed the judge a copy of the discrepancies in the way they've addressed him, and to show that we are in a issue is, who the fuck is this addressed to, pal? Okay? So, and the judge accepted that and acknowledged it and said, yeah, it's quite true. The majority, you can see that the majority of what has been done is that my colleague is trying to understand who the fuck are you making a claim against? Or what? Yeah? This were all going well at the beginning. It were going really good. You could see it were being acknowledged correctly. So I said, if it's the deceased estate, then the simple format would be for the counsel to my left to request that I release the credit as the agent for the said deceased estate. So that's the endorsements, isn't it? And then we cited the fact that this problem is due to the incoherent and grammatically varied communications employed by these tossers to the left. And we asked the court to instruct counsel to give us a clear and concise explanation as to whom or what it is here today that they are seeking to bankrupt. Yeah? And that, how they fucking wangle around this. Fair play, my colleague did make a serious error. And that is what sort of... yeah, anyway. So, we got to misrepresentation. Okay, so again, on this idea that we don't know whom or what you're... We're asking these questions and citing these particular acts and saying, are you in sync or in breach of this act when you do this? Because we've made it clear who we are or who he is, yet you seem to be fudging that. So this is basically how the conditional acceptance in January, the new one, were formed. Criminal Justice Courts Act, and that were malicious communications, which is what you were getting all the time. Protection from Harassment Act. Companies Act, which is a document signed in accordance with subject to and expressed in whatever words to be executed by the company has the same effect as if executed under the common seal of the company. Vicarious liability there. See, that's why we're aiming at the CEO responsible for his employees. And then you get into the Modern Slavery Act. We express that. Local Government Act 1888 provides that transfers of powers and duties enacted by this Act shall not authorise any county council or any committee or member thereof to exercise any of the powers of a court of record, to administer an oath, or to exercise any jurisdiction under the Summary Jurisdiction Acts to perform any judicial business, or otherwise act as justices or justices of the peace, which is exactly what they're doing. So this is all in this conditional acceptance that I sent in January. Then we sent an acceptance certificate to the terms, but then I put in a notice of opposition or an opposing statement, because you don't want to be arguing, creating controversy, or claiming ownership. So I worded them outside of that. And then, it would just... And of course, he interpret all the ambiguous words, so there's no ambiguity, and we making it clear what we know. Then I sent a conditional acceptance certificate to those terms. And in the conditional acceptance, I made it clear that if they were breaching this, then there were going to be a right for a claim by my colleague. And in the acceptance certificate, we put the charge in for each claim as well. Now, the judge acknowledged all this, but was very particular in his summary what parts he picked out, which I thought were very disingenuous. Very disingenuous. But then we had to put an opposing statement in, which was a sort of rebuttal. And then I'd put an additional one in to expand on it, and that's where I insisted this hearing was a court of record. I made it clear that my colleague was making a special appearance. I made it clear that the assumption that he was coming and to be seen as a trustee to some tort, or that the prosecutor had to be seen as the beneficiary, was hereby revoked. All that were put in there. Now, he never touched on all this stuff. We were very, very particular in what he pulled and thinking. So it was rather a very disingenuous enterprise, and I do think it was my friend, he made a serious error, and that's what they jumped on, which is sad, really, because but then actually there's more, because what we did a week and a half before is all the council tax bills, we endorsed them, accepted for value, without recourse, etc. We did 8, sent them all special, not a stamp on back, special delivery sticker. Gone. They all went to the S151 at the council, and you know yourself, bills of exchange 18, 2 and 3 upon site is accepted, and if not, it's dishonoured. We also made copies So that in court, we brought this up, and the judge the 8 copies and the prosecution the 8 copies of these endorsed bills. Again, dishonoured. And he spoke about it, he weren't shy of saying, fuck off. So that's 2 of... Now, also, towards the end, my colleague made it very clear that he was here today to settle. We needed to understand, was it the N-Legis, in which case we'd endorsed, settled? Or was it him, as the settler and beneficiary, in that sense, it needed to be a contract? And that he was here today to settle by any regards. And that judge refused to allow him to settle. And that's against the insolvency rules themselves, which is that it has to be that there is no chance of him settling in the future. These guys are fucked. Because I'll tell you what we're looking at now, here. We're looking at trespass, a breach of trust, and conspiracy. Not just by the judge, the clerk, and the prosecutor, but by 5 officers of the council and the CEO of the solicitors in Wigan, which I dragged into this earlier in the game because he had a DUNS number. They've all got DUNS numbers, proven that the private corporate, their conspiracy to extort the estates of you out there. Because I'm telling you now, folks, this insolvency game is going to rise. This is what the new game to take everything you've got. So it's the High Court next, and the problem you have is the form that they have so fixes it to person. So the game is going to be working out how to word this in a manner that doesn't fix you on person. So that is the situation as it stands today. But 4 hours we were in that court. 4 hours. And I have to say, I was exceptionally disappointed because if guys at that level are acting in that manner, then this nation has no law at all. Or if it does, it's certainly not playing out for you or me. And that is quite perturbing, I'll say. So that's basically the situation. And I have to say, I'm certainly not impressed with that at all. I think it's absolutely disgusting. So, chaps, I'll have a look at what you're saying. I'll just go through anything you're saying, not if you're chatting to each other. Let's have a look. Okay. I think we're getting to where we were. So people have shown who's backing Tommy. That'd be interesting if somebody could send me that link, even by email. John Smith says KFC or McDonald's equals Soylent Green. I haven't seen that film, but my question is concentration camp or gulag, especially when you're both under the same fat controllers, yeah. The inverted taco Tuesday. All owned by the user, yeah, exactly. John Francis says, yeah, true. Nothing was the same velvet taco in Texas. Okay, excellent. But can you see how we are doing it? We pay. You know, if you're getting taxis, if you're using Uber Eats, if you're using takeaways, what are you doing? You are supporting this new bank. That's the way you do battle, not Tommy's way. Do you know what I'm saying? No, okay, your convenience might go out the window. But if it's important to you that you stop this encroachment by this new imperial force, well, you have 2 options. You can either go to war with them, or you do it subtly. They're using subtlety. They're using the art of war. You'd be stupid not to use it back. Don't give it your money. It's as simple as that. And you're not being racist, you recognise that it's just another bank. But it's a bank that's really severe because it's chopping arms and legs off. You know, Barclays and that, they might be bastards, but they don't chop your arms and legs off, do they? Lloyds or Nationwide, they're not chopping your arms off, ladies and gentlemen. This is how serious this is down the line. Maybe not, you might think maybe not for you, but your offspring, do you have no sense of responsibility for what you leave in your offspring? This is how you do battle, not Tommy's way, because that's playing into the game. Long John Silver. He's my great-great and more great-great-granddad. Really? Interesting tree. Usually says Texas, you don't have federal estate taxes, it's almost independent. We feel unusual owners, yes. IRS agents have said that taxes are voluntary, but most people do not know that. Yeah, well, we know that, but they don't tend to say it, they do fuzz around it. Show me the tax law that says I have to pay tax. You don't, but the deceased estate does. Which is why you want to be in a position of settling. You want to be the agent for that as a principal. So they should be requesting that you release the credit, not demanding that you come in and pay it. Because that's how they get funded. You know what I mean? By getting you to pay again. They don't get the little shirt. It's a mafia. It's a fucking mafia. Really, this is what we have to start to see it as. It's a mafia. They might wear suits. They might talk posh, some of these people. But I don't even think they know what the hell they're involved in properly. Because they believe. I believe. Well, I don't like it. An invisible social contract. Well, the blind adhesion contracts is the term. Yeah, of course they are, because you're not getting full disclosure. It's a big club and you ain't in it, says John Smith, referencing George Carlin. Jerry says, we engage in their concept, their creation. Who creates a thing controls it. So yes, in a way, we lack knowledge. That's absolutely what the problem is. Yeah, we are lacking the knowledge. They steal our consent. Well, I can say clearly that's exactly what they've done in Monday's gig. Now, I can understand why they jumped on his error. However, the points of note come in other sophistry that they've used. And like I said, balance of probabilities is just, it's so overplayed, it's ridiculous. But that's what they played. But it's the other issues that are more important for breach of trust, trespass. But more importantly, this has been a conspiracy. A conspiracy. And in a lot of cases, a conspiracy of silence. Which is why the new case law that they're bringing in about silence is at their level, the infant level, the play school yard is carrying. That's no surprise when, thank God, I don't. It won't happen until it's wrecked overnight. The infamous superhighway, plenty of dog motorists. Where are we? Unidroit. All agreements must be kept. As I understand it, Unidroit is for the private. The UCC is the public. I've got the Unidroit on my website. Where are we now? The dealings with the land registry when I sold my house had a boundary dispute. It was like dealing with primary school children. Yeah. One of my dogs is trained on firearms holders. Never needed to disarm anyone yet, says AMG. AMG said, interesting, my YouTube app on my smart TV is censoring comments that my webpage connected phone isn't. Interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? So is AI taking over the smart system before the phone system? I don't know. Interesting that for AMG. My first job was in the land registry. Awful place to work, says Jane. Interesting, Jane. You might have to give us some insider info, darling. Thank you for that. I like to listen to Sean on my TV, but comment via my phone. It's like two different chats. Well, that's a very interesting concept. Thanks for that, AMG. That's very interesting indeed. Thanks for that, matey. We were sending my crown drawing. I'll have to be a catwalk model. A cat flap model, says AMG. Okay. No dogs below. Jerry says, see, the man was there and they would be forcing personage on man. Well, they can't see man, can they, in the shindig? Settler and beneficiary. But it's interesting when you look at these forms for the High Court. We're going to have to be... this is where we're at the moment. It's working out how we approach this form, basically. In relation to using the correct verbiage, you know. Night, Lone Rizzler. Nice to see you, my friend. I hope things are well. Link on your Facebook. Thanks for that, AMG. You're a beaut. Davina! Hi, Sean in the mix. Very sexy white shirt. Looking fresh as always. You darling. Where were you last week? I thought you'd finished with me. I thought you were sending Michelle to tell me in class you finished with me. Anyway, nice to see you, Davina, at the last minute. But, well, that's it, folks. Just over 2 hours, that's good. So it's been an interesting week, and obviously it's not over yet. So there we go. Interesting week, very enlightening week. But honestly, guys, to watch these people in suits act like they do, it's not endearing to the grown-ups, let's put it that way. With that, chaps and chapesses, I shall say, have a good week. Thanks for joining. Mods, if you've been there, thanks for modding. And a bit less of the old animosity this week, which I like. And we need to have that more in future. Nice to see you too, Davina. Till the next time.
electronic